You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. This is James Morris. This is round 2 or segment 2 of our Tuesday morning show. It's around 6:17, and we do this show every morning, weekday morning from 6 to 6:30 on Fox 28 WPGX, and people write me questions or they call me on the air. That's why every morning we do this show live. Now, it may be, we record this show, so what you're watching may not be actually live, but we're here at 6 o'clock in the morning to 6:30, and we answer the questions live. So if you've got a car question, we are here answering your questions, pointing you in the right direction, whether you come to James Auto Center to get your car repaired, or the dealership, or who XYZ Auto, we don't care. What we're trying to do is help you get answers you may have problems to. I see people come in all the time with questions I think are relatively easy, that don't require any money to give them the answer. How you like that? And here's a perfect one right here. This is Randall. Randall said, I have a 2015 Ford F-150 with EcoBoost that shuts the engine off when sitting at a traffic light for a few seconds and restarts when you release the brake pedal. This must be hard on the battery and starter. Can that function be bypassed easily? If so, I will come to talk to you about doing this. Well, that's the way it's designed, okay? But if you want to get rid of it, there's a way of hitting the button when you get in the car and you're wanting this not to do this. Say you're sitting in traffic and you're tired of every 2.5 seconds, that car will shut off when you're sitting at a red light with your foot on the brake. That's how it works. To save fuel and keep the emissions down. Believe it or not, most emissions, the heaviest emissions, are when the car is first started up or when the car is idling. Now, I know that sounds, but when the car is cold, your emissions are higher because the car is cold, and when the car is idling, it red lights, and that's what causes a lot of people to use fuel. If the car is going to idle more than 2 to 3 minutes, you really should cut the car off. That's one of the reasons Priuses and Insights, Honda, all hybrids shut off when you come to a light. They run off the battery for the air conditioning or whatever. Well, these 2015 EcoBoost do the same thing. They shut off, and there's no reason for the engine to start back up again unless the internal of the cabin starts getting warm, and it needs to start the engine back up to cool it back off. But it takes about, when you take your foot off the brake, in a half a second, it starts back up again automatically. The starter is not like the starter you and I grew up with. It's not the starter with the Bendix and all that. If I'm not mistaken, it's a lot like the others, where it's a armature built into the bell housing of the transmission, or it's built into, I have to double check it on them, I don't know which one they have, or we call a mild hybrid to a degree. This is what this is, where it uses the alternator as a starter. I know, it sounds hard to believe. And it's a different, but that's the way they're coming. That's what we call mild hybrids. They've had this out for a while. When you come to a red light, and there are 42-volt systems on the ones I'm thinking about, I've got to look at this 2015. But I know you can just shut it off. There's a button. Just read the owner's manual. It'll tell you how to shut it off, but it only does it on the cycle you're driving. Once you shut the car off, go back inside, come back out, it starts all over again, shutting off when you come to a red light, unless you hit the button that says to bypass it. And it's in your owner's manual to do that. It's not a real hard thing to do, and I didn't charge anything when the guy wrote me that. I just want to point him in the right direction. I emailed him back. But these are things, all these little nuggets of truth that's in your owner's manual. Like, when do you change your brake fluid? Do you know that the manufacturer is recommending changing brake fluid every 30,000 miles? That's been that way for years on European models. On Audis, Volkswagens, BMWs, every 2 years, 30,000 miles. Well, in the last 3 to 5 years, all the manufacturers here in America have decided, there's a lot of wisdom in changing the brake fluid, especially with anti-lock brakes. Because if you don't change the if you don't change the brake fluid, it fills up with moisture. That's right, brake fluid's hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture like a sponge, and moisture is heavier than the brake fluid, so it always goes down to the very bottom where the calipers are or the wheel cylinders are. So then when people go to do brake jobs, we were talking about this yesterday, they will push the piston in, but if they don't open the bleeder valve, all that nasty fluid will go back up into the system and not saying it will, can damage the valves in the master cylinder or the dump valves or in the proportioning valves or all these little valves that are inside there that are very precise. They're electronically controlled, and you're shoving rusty, nasty brake fluid full of chunks of rust. Come on, think about it. Yeah, that's going to cause problems. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, and there's a lot of you out there listening to the show that are do-it-yourselfers, and you never have paid anyone to put brake shoes on your car, but you've paid a lot of people over the years to figure out what's wrong with your hydraulic systems or after you've done it. Some people don't want to admit that, but I've seen that quite often. People will push that piston in without opening that bleeder, and then a week or two later they start noticing they have a problem with the master cylinder, have a problem with the pedal going to the floor, or have problems of some sort, or wheels locking up, or brake lights coming on. And a lot of that can be avoided by one, changing your brake fluid every 2 years, every 30,000 miles. That's one thing you do. If you do that, that means you're going to change your brake fluid between most brake jobs last a minimum of 50 to 60,000 miles. So halfway, when the brakes are halfway wore out, you're changing the brake fluid. So any moisture that's in the system, it's out. And you're keeping those calipers where they're working like they're supposed to. The rubber seals are not getting gunged up with rusty, nasty, cruddy stuff that's going to cause that caliper to lock up on you around 80 to 90,000 miles. It's going to cost you a big bill. So if you'll do that, change your brake fluid. And if you do go to have your brake pads changed, make sure that the shop puts brand new calipers on there if you're having your pads changed. You can cut cut the rotors if you want to, but in most cases, if you measure them correctly after you cut them, I don't think I've seen any lately that I've cut and got them smooth and true that were within specifications. There were always like 1 or 2 thousandths out and I very lightly cut them just to true them up, and then I measured them and they were at the minimum specifications, below the minimum specifications, so I couldn't put them on the car. If I put them on the car and something had happened, I could be held liable.
Plus thin rotors don't take the heat very well. Next thing you know, you got hot spots. And bad problem.
Well, that's why there's a minimum thickness on them. They got to have so much. All this works together. Pads, rotors. You can't mix match pads and rotors. When you change, here's what I see a lot of people do. They got the original rotors on the vehicle. They go buy the cheapest pads they can, put on just do a pad slap. They put it on there, then they wonder, I didn't have a vibration when I first did this. But here it is 3 months later, and I got this terrible vibration. What happened? Well, you got the metallurgy of the rotor is not compatible with the pads. And when you put the pads on there, one, they're not flat, not true, so they're not making a good contact, and they're having to actually get hotter than they really should to get what's called hot spots on them, because they're actually getting hotter areas in other areas. And you're at the same time, you're not getting this pad will actually embed itself. Parts of the pad will embed itself into the rotors because maybe the pad is too hard for the rotor. That's why pads and rotors must be matched. I know that sounds hard to believe. You really shouldn't buy rotors from one part store and pads from another part store.
I was going to say, these manufacturers spend hundreds of thousands of dollars engineering brakes so that they won't make noise and won't have these problems you're talking about. So when people don't use the technology and the information that's out there, they're just
asking for trouble.
That's right.
I see this all the time. I have people come in all the time. Well, I bought the rotors just last month from so-and-so, and I put my pads on there. Well, I realized there was a problem, so now I went and put some new pads on there with the new rotors, or vice versa, and I still got problems. No, you got to do it all at one time. I had a gentleman write me the other day. He says, "You write about taking care of brakes, but why don't you use brake clean when you clean things off?" And I go, "Why do I want to spend $7 to $8 a can to be wasted to go up into the air, and I can do the same thing with hot soapy water?" I'd rather do that. That's one less expense I have to do, because anytime I spend something, I got to pass it on to the customer to keep my doors open and to remain profitable. So what you do is
and that's
soap
why
and water.
A lot of shops use disposal fee. Well, we have to do that with some of, but shop fees. Yeah. So environmental fees. That's where that brake clean comes in.
And we had to get to the point where we're using hot soapy water just to clean parts. And people go, "What?" Yeah, believe it or not, I've got a hot tank that uses hot soapy water. It's a special kind of soap, and it cleans them. We actually put parts in there, and it's hot soapy water, just like you wash your dishes in. And when you get ready to dispose of this, we don't have a biohazard. We're not having anything that's in the bottom down there. We scrape out, we put in a little box, and it gets shipped out, to be disposed of properly. There's a lot going on being in an auto repair shop. Not only do you have to make sure you treat the customer's car correctly and fix it correctly and give a warranty on it, we give a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on our work. The first year is nationwide, 100% parts and labor for 12 months, 12,000 miles. Then the other 24,000 miles is prorated all the way down from the 12-month 1 day all the way down to the 36-month. We prorate it. So we're trying to take care of customers. So if after, say, something happens on the 13th month, it only costs you a third of what it costs to parts and labor to repair whatever happened. But that's what we're doing. I know a lot of shops out there that don't do anything like that. You're lucky to get a 90-day warranty, but we're a Napa Auto Care shop, and what else are we? We're a TechNet shop, and we're a AAA shop. We do all these things because we have a lot of bosses, believe it or not, looking out over our shoulder. AAA looks at us, make sure we take care of their customers. We've got Napa that's always making sure that we're looking after their customers. We get surveys and customer satisfaction index cards sent in all the time. Are we doing a good job? Are we doing a bad job? Do we take care of our customers? Would you recommend friends coming here? And if we get a bad report, boy, they call us up, want to know, what did you do wrong with this car? Call this customer and find out what's going on. A lot of times we find out we didn't do anything wrong. The customer just checked the wrong square. Everything's fine. They got confused or what, and that happens. So that's why it's so very, very important when you are running a shop that it's the customers you got that you take care of. And that's what we're trying to do here in this business, is help raise, in this show, is help raise the level of professionalism in this industry, to get everybody on the same page, and to let people understand that it's a lot tougher fixing today's cars and just changing oil and putting spark plugs in. It requires a lot of training, a lot of electronic training, understanding. Believe it or not, understanding 12 volts and voltage drop is probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to teach anybody out here, because, well, you don't think 1 or 2 volts would cause a problem. If you think about a house, if you lose 1 or 2 volts, no one cares about it. You don't even notice it. You lose 1 or 2 volts on a 12-volt system, you could lose fuel pumps, alternators, batteries, light bulbs. You'd be surprised how many things fail due to low voltage. Yeah, low voltage. Starters, that's losing more than a half a volt. And
fuel pumps?
How many times have we seen people come in here and they put 2, 3, 4 fuel pumps in, and finally they bring it on a wrecker after their 4th fuel pump and said, I'm tired of doing this, can you fix it? And we go out there, spending about an hour looking for voltage drops, and we'll find it. And usually the voltage drop is on the negative side. And people look at me and go, how can it be on the negative side? Well, remember, that ground is going through the body. And you've got a 10-year-old truck. And that nut that's holding where that ground is going through the chassis is probably rusty. Maybe you came from up north. Maybe you live on the beach. And corrosion's gotten there, and now we have a voltage drop. We got a drop of, let's just say, instead of it being 12.6, 12.8, 13 volts when you're going down the highway, it's only 11 and a half. That don't sound like a lot, but you know what? That volt and a half right there will cause that fuel pump to get hotter, work slower, and burn up faster than anything out there I can think of. That's just one of those little tricks out there. So always do voltage drops on starters, alternators, anything out there that you're putting on there that's electrical, do voltage drops on. Failure to do that can usually mean you get to do the job over again. And if you do it over again and you're a businessman, you get to do it over for free. And if you're a customer doing your own work, it costs more money out of your pocket. Hey, this is James Morris. We'll be back tomorrow morning. If you have a car question, give us a call, 850-763-0555. Bye-bye, everybody.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.